Daily Detroit is brought to you by the community. Support our work at patreon.com/dailydetroit.
Hello and welcome to your Daily Detroit, sharing what to know and where to go in Southeast Michigan. We are pushing Detroit's conversation forward on Monday, May 5th, 2025. Joining me on the line is none other than Fletcher Sharp. And man, do we have some news to start this podcast.
We had a set list that we were going to go over. We talked about it for a few days. And then literally, I won't say a bombshell goes off, but it kind of felt like it a little bit.
Yeah, just about 30 minutes before record time, we learned that University of Michigan President Santa Ono is leaving to head the University of Florida. Ono has led the University of Michigan since 2022. He just received in October a contract extension at U of M through 2032 and a pay bump. He expects to start this new role in Florida this summer. Ono has been an advocate for a number of Detroit-facing projects, including the U of M Center of Innovation. However, he has faced a lot of pushback for some of his views and actions towards the Trump administration, DEI, really scaling that back at the university. A lot of people are upset. And, you know, this is an opinion and this is a podcast, but I feel like we're going to know the rest of the Ono story after this all happens. And like this one feels super weird, Fletcher. Professor Justin Wolfers, who is often on TV about the latest news, posted in response to our thread post, "If you exit at a moment like this, you're not a leader, not the best." And that is from faculty saying that. He's gotten a lot of criticism for a variety of reasons, and then takes this job at the University of Florida, a university with a history of recent scandals and a board that's basically handpicked by Ron DeSantis. And you're just sitting there going like, U of M is like right there at the Ivy School level. And I don't think of the University of Florida like that. And this just seems like we're missing information here. And it also seems like maybe Santa Ono was more conservative than a lot of people maybe let on when he took the job.
No disrespect to Gainesville, Florida, but Gainesville, Florida is very different from Ann Arbor, Michigan. Like insanely different cities, like not even the same, whatever you want to measure them by. The only thing that they have is they both have really good university for sports. But take that away, take away football and basketball. One school has some people who've definitely been in some history books, and one school made Gatorade. I'm going to leave it at that. But to have faculty address that publicly, to say something like that, to throw a little jab using Michigan's slogan publicly like this, lets you know like they kind of found out not long before the public did. And that's not good business, especially for someone who you mentioned who recently got a pay bump and a contract extension. It kind of feels like it's a bit of a blindside. And to your point about Florida and their whole staff essentially being picked by Ron DeSantis, given what Santa Ono has been most recently known for, which is the pushback on the DEI initiatives at Michigan, it feels kind of sinisterly lining up in a way that I don't want it to line up in unless we get more information. But if we have to infer from what we see, it looks like one of those Kristen Cinema moments where you think you got someone who's going to do one thing and then they do the exact opposite near the end before they get out of there.
I wonder if there was pressure behind the scenes building, because some of the sources paying kind of inferred that there was some growing discontent with Ono.
I mean, to your point, yes, there are a lot of people who are okay with the DEI change, the initiatives that Michigan changed that we've talked about in the past. But there are a lot of people, students and faculty, and just people around the area who were like, this is really bad. This is not a good thing you're doing. And I'm sure eventually like enough pressure was applied to mean something. I didn't think it would be enough to jettison him from Ann Arbor, Michigan to Gainesville, Florida. But, I mean, I know they're happy to have him. Interim President Ken Fuchs said, if I could select a dream candidate for the university's next president, it would be Santa Ono, which is a pretty big statement to make about someone coming in. I know people say nice things about people when they come to do stuff. I've heard it plenty of times about myself before I left. But they seem happy with their choice. And if these things line up the way they're supposed to line up, again, like it feels a little bit more sinister than it might initially be.
One, there were some issues even before the DEI thing. You had controversies around protests, and you had some controversies around some staff issues as well. So it'll be interesting to see how this rolls out. I think it's important that the University of Michigan has stable leadership. It is so important to the local economy. It's so important now to the city of Detroit with the investments that are happening that whatever Michigan decides to do next, I just think it's important because without U of M playing a key leadership role, this region is kind of rudderless from a research and investment point of view. Yes, the other universities are important, but U of M is U of M.
I know like a lot of Michigan alums love to say stuff like that, and I'm always like, leave me alone. I don't. But yes, when you look at the stats for universities around the country, not just the region, in a lot of categories, U of M is pretty high up there. Florida's not a slouch per se, but as you said before, like U of M is borderline Ivy school. Like I think if the Ivies opened up their definition of Ivy League schools, maybe Michigan and maybe another school might be able to slide in there. Probably not, but you know, I'm sure Michigan fans would say they're above Ivy anyways. But the change between that is jarring. Like if it's something where he's, you know, wants to go to university and help build them up in ways that he's been talked about doing, then like for sure this would be a good I can do this type of move, but I don't think it's something like that at all.
I would love to hear what you all think. dailydetroit@gmail.com or 313-789-3211. Let's change some gears to something a little bit more hopeful and a little bit more fun. Javier Báez. In our member Discord, people are back in love with this guy. And I'll be honest, he has been producing for the Tigers. If you don't know, you need to be watching the Tigers. They're at the top of the American League. It's a fun time to be a Tigers fan. But I think a big part of this is, oh my gosh, Javier Báez doesn't suck anymore. And you're far more of a sports expert than I. The eye test, he just looks better. The home runs, the consistency. But Fletcher Sharp, in your mind, what's going on here?
So I was at Cornhole one of these past Mondays at the Folding Warehouse, and they had a Tigers game on. And I happened to be walking by, and there were some people watching the games. And I was like, let me pop down for a minute. And I was talking to someone, and they were like, yeah, Javier Báez has kind of come around a little bit. I'm like, yeah, I know. And then they showed him up at bat, and they showed two stats. One of whom matters to me a lot. One of whom is a sabermetric stat that like you weird sports nerds feel the need to infest in all sports. I don't subscribe to that. I'm very much a old school, can this man or woman play ball? And then I just watch. But the first stat is he was batting .301 at the time, which is his highest average ever in his career as a Major League Baseball player, which I had to go back and verify because that didn't feel right. But it is at this current time. The second stat was his whiff rate, which was at his all-time lowest, which in this point means best, lowest. And I was like, yeah, those two stats definitely like impact each other. The biggest thing about Javier Báez has been he'll play great defense. He might mash in some runs, but if you throw a wiffle ball at him, he'll swing 10 out of 10 times, and he'll make contact 0 out of 10 times. There have been some pitches I've seen thrown that are at least 4 feet outside that he's already halfway mid-swing, where you're like, wait. Even the most unbaseball-eyed person can see that pitch is outside. What are you doing? I don't want to speak for him. I don't know if it's, you know, him seeing the same roster, essentially, that they had at the trade deadline, save for a starting pitcher who's now back, be way better without him than they were with him. I don't know if it's I actually want to contribute something. I don't know if it's the fact that he understands the fans are very not thrilled. I mean, I'll admit at the end of last season, I think I literally said they should put him on a slingshot and shoot him to a different city. Maybe it's a bunch of things. Maybe it's none of those things. But he's finally figured out if I stop chasing bad pitches, they'll stop throwing me bad pitches. And then they'll throw me good ones, and I can make solid contact. And so far, he's been doing great. And as a result, you can tell the Tigers have the second best record in Major League Baseball, especially after they beat the Angels, I think 11-1 or 13-1 the day before. So it's a very big piece because when you have your big signing who was batting in like the 3, 4, 5 spot. Now he's batting closer to the bottom of the lineup. When you have him come up and you have base runners on And the whole home crowd sighs when they hear his at-bat music come up, like, oh no, that's very bad. And that's a lot of wasted money. And in some ways, the Tigers being as good as they are right now is a bit more surprising than the Lions, because at least the Lions' issues weren't all the way their own. Like, yes, ownership was not really great, but it wasn't necessarily with them signing the wrong people. It was more so that putting the wrong people in charge. The Tigers have the wrong people in charge to a degree as well, but they also signed some horrendous contracts that they were stuck underneath and could not really rebuild from. They were doing the best they could with chicken scratch. And now they've kind of started to flourish a little bit, and that's great. It's a great time in the city of Detroit when all the sports teams are doing well. Lions, Tigers, Pistons, Red Wings are trying. When this is happening, it's a great time in the city. So I am pumped and I am charged and I am happy that the Old English D is near the top and not the bottom.
You mentioned the Pistons. I want to talk about them for a second because it was hard to watch that series. I am feeling great about the season and the progress. Do not get me wrong. I think there's great stuff that we can build on. But that series was hard to watch. And we haven't talked since the Pistons were eliminated by the Knicks. What happened there?
Lights got a little bit too bright for some people. I faced some backlash online, and I had to give myself some extra thought. And I kind of feel the same way about what I'm about to say. Malik Beasley did a lot of really great things for the Pistons, a lot of great things. He broke some records for sure. He brought some veteran leadership around. He was a very fun guy. But right after the little scuffle between the Timberwolves with Dante DiVincenzo and the Pistons rookie, Ron Holland, I had some friends who were Minnesota Timberwolves fans who were like, oh, watch out for Malik Beasley. He's going to disappear. And I was like, yeah, okay, you guys are just saying this because you're bitter about our teams almost coming to blows. And they're like, no, like he is a great regular season shooter, but he's going to disappear in the playoffs. Just you wait. And then I had a friend of mine who's a Lakers fan who's like, Malik Beasley is about to break your heart next week. And I was like, all right, man, you're just bitter because he didn't do that for you. And lo and behold, they must have been Nostradamus like me, because my heart was broken watching Malik Beasley throw up some really terrible shot attempts. It's one thing to miss open shots. It's not great. That was a big issue with why they weren't doing great, is they were missing a lot of open shots and they were not rebounding at the rate they used to. But like when you're off, maybe stop shooting the ridiculous pull-up three. You know, the one where you catch it, your feet aren't really set, and you just fire it anyway. Maybe don't shoot that. Maybe when you're 0 of 6, that one's not going to make you 1 of 7. Maybe pass it. And as a result of the outside shooting not being great, it wasn't just Malik. Tim Hardaway Jr. had a rough series a little bit as well from the outside, which didn't allow Cade as much space as he needed. And yes, playoff games get a little bit more physical. There are a lot of calls you would see in the regular season that someone would get that they did not get in the playoffs. And I'm not even going to talk about the Jalen Brunson flopping things. That's a different thing entirely, because even with all of that occurring, they still had multiple chances to be up in this series. And the reason why, while I am happy, like with the way the season went, given they had 14 wins to 44, they should have won this series. And I will stand in a mountain by myself to say they should have won this series. This is a series that, even if it would have been an upset on paper, wasn't really an upset. It was a young team wilting under pressure, giving up multiple double-digit to 1 or 0 runs, and just getting totally mentally frazzled. Even JB Bickerstaff had moments where he was mentally just frazzled and arguing with the referees about stuff that might have mattered but did not matter enough in that moment. And I know sometimes coaches do that to fire up their teams, but if you keep doing stuff like that, teams are going to take after the coach, and they're going to start looking for these situations like that instead. I don't know. Like, yes, they should be back, but the last time the Pistons were in the playoffs, they had Stanley Johnson, and he was the LeBron stopper of then. Like he was trying to hold LeBron to, like, you know, make him take tough shots with the Cavaliers. And like, he didn't really make him take that many tough shots. And like, the Pistons will be back. They're young. They got it, whatever. And then they started being one of the worst franchises in the NBA. So I don't think this Pistons team is as bad as that one, because that team is very unbalanced. But to just assume they'll be back next year. I've been there when they've been champions. I was born when they were back-to-back champions. But the times between those generally were rough.
You can't let too much fear get in there, though, man. Like, I think there's a lot of good things. This series was very frustrating, because I do agree with you there that at times I'm looking at this thing, and you can even look at some of the scores, just a couple of little shifts and we win those games. It's not like we were totally outplayed the whole time. This is something we could have done, but I feel like we are the experience was crucial. We needed that playoff experience. We didn't have enough people on the floor that had that experience, and maybe we need to make a couple of roster changes.
For sure. And I mean, Isaiah Stewart, as much as he's gone from someone that I've loved to someone that I'm a little bit annoyed by, having him for more than one game would have definitely helped in someone like Karl Anthony Towns because it would have slowed him down. Yes, he might have still gotten to the points he got, but you would have had someone who very much would be okay wrapping his arms and sticking in his jersey the entire series. Jaden Ivey being gone for most of the back end of the season, that would be someone who you could bring in who could help break up the zone, who can attack the basket and get the ball to the rim. Ron Holland getting some playoff experience is great. Soar played amazing. He had a few lapses at moments of defensively, but it'll help his growth there. If they re-sign Malik Beasley, I would be okay with it. I think he's going to get way more money than I think he probably needs, given his playoff record. But if they didn't, I also would be okay with that as well. They just need to get people that want it. They had someone like Paul Reed who really wanted to help, but Paul Reed, as my friend described him, he looked like a mannequin came to life who you said, go play basketball at times. Like he just didn't, he was like, I'm going to go be a crash test dummy and just run around and do whatever he could to help, which you love. But there are plenty of times he did that and it did not help at all. They need to get some more interior rebounding as well, because when Jalen Duren is like not able to rebound, someone else has to pick up the slack there. And that was a huge thing that you saw with the Knicks, where they just almost every play where the Knicks missed a shot, you assume they would get the rebound. And if the Pistons missed a shot, you then also would assume the Knicks would get the rebound. And that became frustrating. There are so many plays where, again, I'm ignoring the whole flopping thing because I know people want to make a bigger deal about it. I don't like it, but even with all that stuff happening, if they just rebounded the ball 4 or 5 times, they're up in this series 3-1, maybe 3-2, maybe already won 4-2. It's very small things like that. Like you said, the experience was needed. I will say this, they gave Cade Cunningham, who I love, and I hope he's a lifetime Pistons player. They gave him a lot of rope because this is his first playoff series. Understood. That can't be your excuse next season. If they make the playoffs, you cannot play the way you played this series. He had some really great games. He had some really awful games. Not necessarily just with turnovers, but with some bad shots and bad decisions. So going forward, they have this experience now. You can't be this young team who's still figuring it out because you've tasted it now. And if your roster remains essentially the same, maybe get another veteran or two, you can't go out like this. Like you have to go out in a better showing. You cannot go out giving up 20 to 3 points. Like that cannot happen. You cannot have runs like that in a playoff game, especially at home. I think the most disappointing thing is of all the games that they played this series, none of their wins came at home. Yeah. And like that stings.
The fans deserve it. The fans, after all this time, really deserve it. So I want to know what people think. dailydetroit@gmail.com. What do you think about the University of Michigan president thing? What do you think about Javier Báez? What do you think about the Detroit Pistons? Let me know. dailydetroit@gmail.com, 313-789-3211, or chat about it on our member-only Discord, which you will find if you become a member at patreon.com/dailydetroit. With that, I'm Jer Staith.
And I'm Fletcher Sharp.
Thank you so much for listening. Remember that you are somebody, and we'll talk tomorrow.